It's Thursday tips time, people, and I want to know, have you eaten your frog today? I know, you're sitting here thinking Jennifer's lost it now. We've gone from mighty marketing mojo to just mighty crazy off the rails here. But that's okay. I do have a point, and I'm hoping that I got your attention by asking you if you've eaten a frog. And I don't mean like, French style frog legs, that kind of thing, because dude, I'm not doing that either. Although I hear with a lot of drawn butter, they're excellent. But about your business frogs. Did you know you have business frogs? You have business frogs. And for those who don't know, I'm doing some training. I did a great webinar about a week or so ago, and it's the kickoff that's leading into my Mightier Marketing with Trello course, and the course has a live component in February 12th. And I'm going to drop the link in for that. And I'm going to do deep dives into how I use Trello, but more importantly, how I set up Trello. How do we actually move cards? How do we copy a board? What's a card repeater? What the hell's a power-up? It's not that thing that Mario hits during, Nintendo. But that would be cool if it did. Kind of like powering up your business. And how, using Trello, or you can use another tool, we can eat our business frogs. So I had sent out an email today to my community. And if you're not part of that yet, well, get on board with that. Head over to Mighty Marketing Mojo and get signed up. Hey, Erica. And I sent out the email, or at least, I thought I sent out the email. Emails and sending emails is one of my frogs. That's one of the things that I tell myself I got to do first before everything else gets in the way of my day. Except there was a glitch. And see, even geeks like me have tech glitches. And I just talked to somebody else who's like, the universe is tech glitching everywhere this week. And the email hadn't sent. So some of you may be watching on replay. That's cool too. But the title, and it was the first time I had a chance to use an emoji, use a frog emoji, was about eating your frogs. And it referenced this book from Brian Tracy. This is my, you can see dog-eared, and these are my written notes copy. I think this is one of the first editions. So this one, I've had this on my bookshelf since before I started my business. This one came out in 2007. He did do an updated, revised version of the book in, I believe, 2017. Because some people are like, oh, I'm not reading this because he talks about things like before most of the technology that we know today. But the point is, you don't need to have technology to eat your frogs. And he talks about it and references a quote from Mark Twain. And I'll come back to that. The notion being, if you eat a big slimy frog first thing in the morning, then the rest of your day has to be easier by comparison. I mean, everything else that you would eat that day has got to be easier than sucking down a frog, right? And so now we metaphorically think about, well, what's that task? What's the thing that's been hanging over our heads? What's that big, ugly, slimy sucker that we keep not wanting to eat? And that's the thing we actually have to do first. So, sidebar, time out. I'm a researcher. I literally have a degree. It's somewhere over there behind me in finding out information. That's what I call the fact that I have a master's in library science. And so I actually had to track down, did Mark Twain actually say that quote? And the answer is no, probably not. He wrote a lot about frogs. He wrote some other short stories about frogs. But that quote actually probably came as a paraphrase from somebody French. But it doesn't matter whether Twain said it or not. The point is valid. The point is that we procrastinate all the time. And you've heard me say we procrastinate plan and we procrastinate learn. We will sit there and we will make to-do lists and notes, and we have our Post-its. So I keep sharing the one same Post-it because that's the only one that's actually on my desk at the moment. And we create to-do lists and we have our calendars and we go take another course, and all of it is because we are trying to avoid our frog. And so while I'm working on my Trello course, I went back and revisited a little bit of Brian Tracy so we could think about what are our frogs. And the fact that it's a short book. And he'll even tell you in the book that, while he's got like these 21 techniques and stuff, you don't do all of them and you don't do all of them all at once, which is kind of how I feel about tasks, and it's kind of how I feel about the tools. We don't need to use all of them, and we don't need to use all of them all at once. And I was curious whether some of his tips were still applicable and how they fit in with the Trello things that I'm doing and the boards that I've set up, and the fact that I use Trello to help me figure out what my frogs are, where my tadpoles are, and the other things in the pond that I need to be eating. And the answer is, yeah, I'm pretty much think that can. There are other tools that can. And I'm actually going to be over with Meredith Eisenberg, and we're going to be in Solo Biz Hackers at 4 p.m. Eastern today. We're going to talk a little bit about that. She actually asked me to give my sort of 3 productivity and tips and my 3 anti-tips. And I'm going to mention some other tools. There's going to be some emails coming up also where I'm talking about the fact that there are Trello alternatives. And for those who don't know, I'm putting a link into the chat that, at least I think I am, there we go, for the Mightier Marketing with Trello course. And the reason I want all my folks to jump on this now is you're going to get me live. You're going to get me live for at least an entire 60 plus minutes where we dive in, we answer questions. If you have questions you want to send me in advance, because you can't be there live, I answer those questions. We look at boards. We talk about your situations and cases. Because then after that, I don't know when I'm going to offer it live again. And it's going to go in my, member Mighty Marketing Mojo vault. And you're going to get to watch the replays. And there's going to be bonus videos and stuff like that. But it's the chance to get the lowest price for it at $27 and to get me live to ask all the questions that you want. But I look back at Brian Tracy's book about Eat That Frog. And he talks about the things that it's about, really, how do we get to the frog? How do we eat that slimy task that we keep procrastinating on? And it's about habits. It's about clarity. It's about writing things down. And it's about making priorities. Well, that we can do whether it's pen, paper, Post-it notes, or, Trello. That's why I'm using it, because then I can dump the things out of my head. I have the boards. I have my now. I have my next. I have what I'm doing right now this week, and I can keep track of it all, and it's easy, and it's color-coded, and it matches to my calendar. But more importantly, it gets that out of my head. And that's something that he talked about even, 13 some odd years ago, is that part of why we procrastinate and we don't know where to start is because there's too many frogs in the pond in our heads, and we got to get it out. And so finding a tool, and that could also be Evernote. It could be your tasks, app. It could be, I've got a Rocket book, which connects to Trello because of course it does. But you got to get that stuff out of your head so that you can do the next step, which is prioritizing. And you've got to be able to figure out what's truly most important. And I'm sitting here looking at my notes and stuff these are some of the notes that when I was rereading from Brian Tracy. And the other interesting thing that goes back to my whole procrastinating and why we have to cut that out is he says every minute spent on planning up first. Now, we're talking structured planning, not just planning to plan, saves you up to 10 minutes in execution, but that we can't get stuck in the planning phase. He also is a big fan of the fact that we need different lists for different purposes. Do not dump everything in your brain out into one giant list so that you've got new opt-in list, dry cleaners, chicken breasts for dinner, take the kids to daycare, flu shot, write an email, all in the same list. I mean, that's overwhelming. That was an overwhelming thought, when he wrote the book 13 years ago. It's an overwhelming thought when I think about it right now. You have different frogs, which is why I started this Facebook live chat by asking you about your business frogs. You might have a completely different frog that's sitting in the pond at home personally. I will tell you right now, my office and my garage are my personal frogs. They are big. They are slimy. The out of controlness that is the office behind me is the thing I keep procrastinating on. And it's going to take a lot of days, of eating a lot of frog pieces here in my office to take care of it. But the answer is I just gotta damn do it. And then everything else about my day would be easier. If I throw away one thing, there are some people who say, that's why you set timers. It's why you put it on the list, and it's why you break it down into smaller pieces. And that's maybe where I deviate from Brian Tracy and frogs. Because honestly, I think it'd be a lot easier to eat the frog if you ate the frog one piece at a time. Fine, do the frog all at once. Do the frog. Do the frog first. But for God's sakes, go ahead and cut him up into legs versus, the middle section, and because otherwise you literally can't get the frog in. Unless they're really small. Okay, metaphor done. But it holds true. The other part about, so what's a frog? Because sometimes they're the things that we procrastinate on. But the other thing that's really important is that it needs to be what some people call an MIT, most important task. It's that thing we know we need to do because we also know that if we get it done, not only do we feel better, but it has the most impact in our business. It's the thing that if we do it, truly pushes us forward. It's why it makes us productive, and we have the impact we want to have in the world, and it's not just us being busy. Which is why I've sent some emails out in the past that have said, redoing your website is not your most important task. It's not your money-making task. It, however, may be an important task. And I actually know that, my pal Erica is having some website issues. So maybe there is one day this week you're like, okay, I got to do something about this. What's the one thing I can do? And swallow it down and get it the heck out of the way so I can go on to doing something else. It's also about evaluating it in conjunction with something else that we need to be doing, and which one really, truly moves up and our business forward. Which one has the most impact? Which one leads to us making dollars? Which one leads to us having a great conversation with one of our awesome clients? Which one of us, which task brings one of those clients to us? Which one of those things lets us go out and have that kind of impact where somebody else is like, oh my God, thank you for helping me with this. And sometimes those things that we put on our to-do lists and our Trello boards, they're what we sometimes call important but not urgent, or they may also be urgent but not actually important. Where's that mix? And that's why some people there's a 4-quadrant thing. It's known as an Eisenhower matrix. It's like important versus urgent, and you want the nexus of them. We also know about the 80-20 rule, the fact that only about 20% of what we do generates 80% of our impact, of our income. 20% of our clients bring in 80% of our revenue. And yet we go out trying to find that other 80% of people who only are responsible for the other 20% of our success and our dollars. Are we chasing the wrong things? Are we chasing the wrong frogs? Are we chasing a bunch of tadpoles around the pond? Are we chasing something that looks like a frog and isn't a frog at all? There's a toad. What are we doing? What are we doing, and is it truly a priority? And the other part of this is, Tracy and Twain and some of the others talk about, well, you got to do it first. You got to eat your frog first thing in the morning, first thing in the day. Everything else in the day goes better. I don't know about you, but I'm not actually a morning person. So the notion of trying to do my hardest or most important or most impactful task first thing in the morning would not be successful. My brain's just not wired for that. Somebody who's a morning person, go for it. You do your frog in the morning. Somebody who's a night owl might find out that, figure out what time during the day you've got the most energy, the most clarity, the most focus. And that's when you set aside your 30 minutes and you do your frog. You eat the frog, you cut him up, boom, done. And you figure out what's the frog for that day. So that might also be, again, where, you've got a frog, you've assigned the frog You've assigned your most important thing you need to do this week. Now, which bit of them are you going to eat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, rather than trying to stuff the whole thing in on one day? Break it up. We've got other things we have to do. Find your 30 minutes and work on that part of the frog, and find the 30 minutes when you personally have the most clarity, the most focus, the most energy. So you can survey, sure, drop me a line in the chat. When for you are you feeling your best energy? There's a reason I do these things at 2:00 in the afternoon. I've eaten, I've had my caffeine, we're good to go. I don't do Facebook Lives at 8 a.m. That would be rad. I might also be doing them from bed. That's just not going to happen. I'm also not going to do them at 2 a.m. So, when's your frog eating time? And think about that. That might be something you want to think about this week, is keeping note of where your energy is, where your resources are, when you have that energy. And so Erica's saying, like, late night when the house is asleep. So you need that quiet, and you need the fact that it's finally you time. And that's awesome that you know that. I know that for me, finally getting to read something, if I want to read a business book, if I want to read some other kind of book, night times, yes. Social media for me, if I'm going to schedule something out or I'm going to write graphics and everything else is quieter in my head, night times are great for that. So that might be for you, that Erica, you're gonna find 30 minutes. And so eating that frog first thing in the morning isn't what you're gonna do. You're gonna do the other things that are important for you, but you're gonna dedicate frog time in a half an hour or an hour at night. Not at the sacrifice of sleep or anything like that, but it's good that you know that, and that you can try and make that part of your routine. And that's where Brian Tracy and I and a lot of other productivity so-called gurus and I disagree, is about the whole morning thing. And I'm going to talk about that more with Meredith Droop at 4:00 this afternoon. And it may even, I've talked about it in blog posts, and I've talked about it in presentations before, so it may get more of its own Facebook Live. So the trick is, and hopefully, and that's something we're going to talk about during the Trello training, but we can keep talking about it during these Facebook Lives. You can come and talk about it with me in the Mighty Marketing Mojo Facebook group, is how do we identify what's most important right now? What's either a moneymaker, what's going to have an impact with a client, what's going to allow us to feel confident in how we step up and show up in our businesses, and do those things first. Schedule them, put them in the now board, put them for today, figure out how to break them up into things that we can eat that are bite-sized, and then do that thing. So maybe, that was me. Before I ate lunch, I had to go fix the email to make sure that got out. If I caught it earlier, I would have done it before I ate breakfast and coffee too. But I did it. I stopped, I put it aside, and I just went and did it. I know I needed to go and write some emails, and yesterday wound up being email day. Great. So let's work on, if you need to, get in touch with me and let's help figure out what your frogs are, what your business frogs are, and how can we eat them and not keep procrastinating or eating things that, we think are awful or we think are important, and they're really not. So I want to make sure that I see you moving forward, because then you're mighty, and I want you to all be mighty, and I want you to all have mighty success. So thanks for being with me for this Thursday tips about eating your frogs as part of your complete nutritional business diet plan. And I hope to see some more of you in the Mightier Marketing with Trello training, as we do a little more deep dive into using Trello and how to get it set up so that it works for us. Be back later. Watch for more emails from me. Go have a mighty Thursday, everybody.